Hi everyone, Asmo here, and today I will teach you how to juice. Juicing in Path of Exile refers to scaling the amount of monsters and loot in your maps through adding synergistic mechanics and modifiers to them. Have you ever wondered why some people are struggling to find a single divine orb in a week of mapping while others are finding divines constantly as if they're rabbit droppings in a pet shop? It has very little to do with luck because it's always the same people that are making money and the same people that are not making money, and there's always a reason for that disparity. So if you want to join the club of players that get much better loot on demand, pay attention to the information in this video and then try to apply it. First, let's explain some basics that a lot of you might not know. Path of Exile 2 takes a lot of its core mechanics from PoE 1, and it also has three main sources of modifiers that can affect your loot: monster modifiers, area modifiers, and player modifiers. The player modifiers refer to the rarity that you can get on your gear. It helps you get more rare items, more uniques, higher tiers of rares, and even better currency drops. You still drop the same number of items, but they are qualitatively better, which means that more of them will appear on your loot filter and it will seem like you're getting more items. If you're trying to farm maps for loot, it is a very good idea to get around 100 to 150% rarity on your character, including the charms. You can find your current rarity in the on-kill effects section of your skills. Rarity has also pretty steep diminishing returns. That means that the more of it you get, the smaller the improvement and the benefit that you're getting. So going from 0 rarity to 50 will have the biggest impact on your drops. Going from 50 to 100 will be a little bit less noticeable, and going from 100 to 50 will be even less impactful. And that's where I would recommend stopping your investment into player rarity unless your build is literally flying through the hardest content and there is nothing else you could otherwise improve. Area modifiers are the modifiers that come from your Atlas passives, modifiers on your Waystones, modifiers on tablets. They are the text that you see on the side when you are in the area. Sometimes they come at the price of increasing the map difficulty, like in the case of increased effect of explicit modifiers on Waystones, which will scale the rarity from your Waystones, but it will also magnify the detrimental modifiers at the same rate. So apart from the difficulty increase from that, there is really no reason not to boost your area rarity as much as you can. And area modifiers differ from the player modifiers in the fact that they affect everything in that area, including the chests, strongboxes, and inanimate objects, while the player rarity only affects the things that you kill, so pretty much just the monsters. The monster modifiers come from the inherent modifiers on magic and rare monsters, as well as things like the Azmeri wisps. The same modifiers that give rare monsters their damage and tankiness and various abilities that you can see listed under their names also give them increased rarity of items dropped. So in principle, the harder the monster on average, the better the loot it should give. And the most important thing to know about these three sources of modifiers is the fact that they are multiplicative with each other. So the more player rarity you have, the better the area rarity becomes, and vice versa. This is the essence of juicing. We want to combine things that interact with each other in a scaling manner. So if you make monsters drop more items, then that makes adding more monsters to your maps more effective because each one of them will give you more loot. So if you effectively double the value of your loot through rarity and then increase the number of monsters in your map by 20%, then you're multiplying your drops by 40% compared to the original number. Now, let's move on to some practical examples. I'm going to walk you through the Atlas passives, and then we'll talk about the Waystones and how to prepare them for the biggest profit. And in the end, I'll show you also the strategy that I am using right now that allows me to make hundreds of divines. When you start, you will have a very small area to explore, and here is what you want to be looking for. Naturally, you're looking for towers to juice them with tablets, and also you're looking for the corrupted areas. Your first priority is to naturally get all of the Atlas passives. That's what you should start with, and then you can think about juicing, because if you are doing content and committing to content that you're not scaling, then you're not getting as much benefit from it as you could otherwise. So the first order of business is always getting all of the passive points that you possibly can get. You can make some currency, pay for the carries to get the kill the bosses that you cannot kill yourself. I would very highly advise doing that in order to make more currency from mapping just by default. So this is the Atlas tree I have. Let me talk about it first, and then we'll move on to like how to traverse the Atlas. So the first thing is the main tree. We have quantity, we have These things are something that is always beneficial, right? So we have rarity of items found, quantity of items found, these are like generic modifiers that are always really good to get. So this is the first thing that is really, really good to get early on. And it also comes with like rarity of Waystones. You can get chance of Waystones to be like higher when you're progressing through tiers. This is really nice. Once you're in T15s, this doesn't really matter because you over sustain the maps by a lot. So these are like the first things you can pick up. And then also the rare monsters. Rare monsters being like one extra rare monster or like extra rare monsters. This is really good because most of your loot will come from rare monsters. Remember when I said that the monster modifiers are multiplicative with the other modifiers? And that's why the rare monsters are the most important ones. That's where you're going to get majority of your stuff from. Then we have also shrines. Shrines are really good early on because another vector that you can scale that is a little bit counterintuitive, because you'd think that the most important thing is to just like boost the rarity, get as much rarity as you can, but you also make more currency if you move faster, if you kill things faster, right? So not only if there are more monsters, but also if you kill more monsters in the same amount of time, that's how you get more money and more currency, right? So the way you want to look at it is through the lens of time. Never worry about like how much currency you get per map. Waystones are dirt cheap. Don't worry about that. Don't worry about full clearing the map or making sure you get every monster and every little chest there. Just kill the rares, move on. Kill the rares, move on, right? Like always try to quickly get in and out of the map and get the majority of the things and then ignore the rest. That's how you're gonna make more money, right? Don't worry about the little details and clearing every single monster and opening every single chest. And if you skip something, as long as you're completing the map, you're fine, right? So that's the reason why also moving faster is really helpful, because it lets you to do more maps per hour, kill more monsters per hour, and you know that's the only metric that matters, right? Basically time, right? How much currency you're making per map is not really relevant. So that's what shrines can help with, right? Moving faster, killing things faster, because they make you stronger, and sometimes also you get the haste shrine that makes you literally faster. Then the other modifiers that are really good here are the tablet modifiers. So once you start, you pick up some passives, then the next order of business is picking up the tablet modifiers, which increase basically the effect of these modifiers, which make them stronger, right? So any quantity and rarity and extra bonuses, extra monsters that you get on them will be increased by these modifiers. This modifier, while it might look really nice, it actually makes it so that you drop fewer things that are not the listed things here, right? So for example, in the mountain biome, you drop 40% more increased chance to drop gold, but as far as I know, these actually reduce the chance to drop other things. So if you're dropping more jewels, you're dropping fewer of other things, right? And the problem is that the only good thing here is basically the first line, the swamp and water biome. So if you wanted to do some min-maxing and you had a bunch of like swamp and water biome maps that you noticed, you could spec it in for those maps, and that would be really good. But otherwise, for general mapping, I actually would advise skipping this passive. Then we have the last order of business. Once your character is strong enough, you want to invest into the increased effect of explicit modifiers. So these are all of the modifiers on the Waystones that increase the drops, increase the amount of monsters, but also increase the difficulty, right? So it will scale everything equally. And what comes with that is also the unstable energy. So this will have 25% more effect of prefix or suffix modifiers. So the suffix modifiers will give you more Waystones, but also more difficulty, and the prefix modifiers will give you either more quantity, rarity, or more monsters or bigger monster packs. So this is really good once your character is comfortable and you can clear maps with the increased effect of modifiers, and you know that it's not gonna mess you up too much. But it does add difficulty, so that would be the last thing that I would be picking on the main Atlas tree. So that is a very, very generic juicing tree. There is no specific thing that I'm picking here. I'm not investing into any specific mechanics here because I'm not interested in wisps. My build is too fast for wisps to be worth doing. Wisps are worth doing if you are playing slower and tankier build, right? Then it's okay to follow them and slowly clear with them. If you're playing a fast enough build, then wisps are not worth it. Essences were bugged for some time. I tried doing them. You can get a lot of essences through this if you especially want to use them yourself. That's a really good way to do it, but I'm not scaling that right now. Keep in mind that adding an essence is also adding an extra rare monster, right? So I could technically skip this or skip a couple points somewhere and just grab the extra essence, but it is a rare monster that you also have to click, so it does slightly slow you down, right? But it is something to consider. Strong boxes are pretty good, but they do take a little bit of time. It's generally worth to scale just more monsters, because if we add more rare monsters, they're going to be affected by all of the modifiers, right? So if we're adding more rares, if we're adding more monster packs, if we're adding pack size, then these things will be scaled with everything else we're doing. But strong boxes, for example, are not scaled with my rarity on my character. They're not scaled really with the pack size if we care about like the loot from the strong box itself, right? So they are a little bit less synergistic with everything else that we're doing, right? The tablets are also not really going to affect the strong boxes that much because the rarity and quantity on the area from tablets will affect it, but the drops themselves from them are not going to be affected by things like pack size and other stuff like that we're also getting from the tablets. And now let's look at the smaller trees. So for the smaller trees, there is a lot of options you have, but definitely make sure that you have the trees for the mechanics that you would like to be running. And that depends, of course, on your build, right? If you're playing like a summoner build and you want to be doing something like a ritual all the time, right? Then make sure that you pick the right passives. For me, pretty much only this passive matters, right? Additional monsters that are spawning with the ritual. So if I randomly get a ritual, I get that. And then also Wildwood Wisp randomly just being there is also beneficial sometimes. But other than that, there is nothing really important here. So I'm just getting some extra monsters. From the Delirium, I'm just getting some extra difficulty, extra fog. The thing is, I'm not entirely sure how this interacts with like Delirious maps because I'm always running Delirious maps that are enchanted and instilled with Delirium, which are a little bit different than the fog. But there are some things that are helpful here, such as, for example, Delirium fog in your map spawns 50% increased fracturing mirrors. So there's going to be more of these little areas that you have to run in and get monsters from them. You can also get maps that are randomly instilled with emotions and also more bosses, which drop good loot. So the bosses are really, really nice. Then we have the bossing tree. So I would recommend picking exactly these passives for just generic mapping and juicing. So quantity of items dropped by bosses, shrines, and then 30% chance for corruption whenever you are doing a map that has a boss in it. And then for the expedition, if you are farming expedition, just like target farming expedition, and you want to get as much out of the expedition, then I would not recommend the extreme archaeology. But if you are doing generic juicing and you simply are treating expedition as just a bunch of extra monsters in the map and you don't really care that much about it, then the extreme archaeology will make it faster and it will make it actually worth. So I would recommend extreme archaeology, weight of history, so more remnants, and then also legendary battles for more rare monsters, because of course rare monsters are the thing that's going to give you the most loot. So that's what I'm doing for my juicing setup. And then for breaches, you can experiment. Like for example, Zesht Madness is pretty good if you have a really strong build, but you need to make sure that you can deal with the Soul Eater monsters, and the more monsters you have, the bigger pack size, the more difficult this is going to be. Since the recent changes, I actually right now unspec'd this. I had the Interdimensional Assault because I had my breaches very comfortably open for a very long time, but since the change, it actually matters how many monsters you kill, and if you're not killing monsters constantly, then the breach will suddenly close. So in the beginning, like, you know, it opens for like 12 or 15 seconds guaranteed, or 20 seconds guaranteed, so it's super easy. But once it becomes very big and you have to run like from one end to the other sometimes on certain maps, then in that time it can close. So I'm going to be experimenting with not running the Interdimensional Assault and instead running this for extra splinters, because there is a lot of splinters that come from the Grasping Hands. The magic monsters also extend the duration of the breaches even more than regular monsters, and because we're picking up all the splinters in one go now, adding these extra splinters to the hands is actually worth it. So I'm going to be trying this and seeing how that goes. So that's my Atlas setup, and that's what I would recommend for a regular juicing that I'm going to be showing you the way I'm doing. Now let's talk about traversing the Atlas and what to look for. So this is really, really important. You want to always have a purpose, right? So initially, of course, you're going for things like Corrupted Nexus, right? So ideally what you're looking for, you're going to the edge of the map, you're going to the fog, and you used to be able to like zoom in and see if there's a corruption on the tower. Sometimes you can see that as well here, but now you can even see the corruptions, right? So you have these red stains that you can notice, and you're looking in the beginning for something like 2 towers next to a corruption, right? So if you zoom in here, oh, you can see on this tower that it has like corruption around it, right? So this tower is within this corruption zone. But having like a couple towers, so here, okay, we have 2 towers and a citadel. This is really good. You can get 2 towers. You can get, for example, effect of increased amount of Waystones dropped on the tablets on these 2, and stack you would have 60 per 60 each, so like 120, and you could drop like 2 or 3 fragments from this citadel, right? So that would be, for example, something you can aim for relatively early, as soon as you can kill citadels. Before that, you're aiming for things like corrupted area that is in between 2 towers, right? So this tower should roughly take like most of this tower as well. Like this is another place that is acceptable to farm, right? So in the beginning, that's all you need, right? Some corrupted area that you cleanse, and then run the cleansed area with a couple of towers next to it, right? And then use any random tablets that have some decent modifiers, like any shitty mods that have like a little bit of rarity, a little bit of quantity, just stack like 3 of them on each tower and you're gonna be fine, right? So that's how you start with. Once you get enough currency to start either buying or accumulating the better tablets, then you really wanna make sure that you prioritize running things like triple tower setups at least, right? So this tower setup actually is a triple tower setup because there is a tower here, so there's gonna be a significant overlap. So that would be definitely a nice area to farm, right? It also will have like this area, this thing will have overlap with this tower and with this tower, right? As you can see. So this would be also decent to do. So that's like a very nice area to do. But you can always take advantage of bookmarks, right? So you right click on any node, right? So it can be a tower, right? If I can get to this tower, and then you type a name. So for example, I have something like this setup that I'm farming now that has 4 towers. This setup that I have here saved, so that has 3 towers. So there is a corrupted area. There's corrupted area here with 2 towers overlapping on it, and it's like a nice little 3 tower setup, and that's what you're looking for, right? So you're just like scouting the edge and looking for, okay, we got 1 tower here, we got 2 towers here, we got 1 tower here, we got 2 towers here, we got another tower here, right? So just like scouting the area and looking for good setups, and then whenever you see one, then you go to the edge and you save a bookmark. Bookmarks that I would recommend saving would be bookmarks to all unique maps, all right? Because you might want to run like a bunch of unique maps later. Let's say you have Untainted Paradise, right? I always save Untainted, because that is something that if I'm leveling a new character and I suddenly like decide to do that, I can just like run 3 Untainted maps or 4 Untainted maps or 5, however many I happen to find, and then just level the character from just entering the maps, put some XP maps into Untainted, and just get a huge amount of levels really quickly, right? So saving that, saving anything that you want, like any of these unique maps, saving areas that you want to farm later, right? If you, for example, want to farm specific things and you see them on the atlas, always just make sure to save the bookmark. So the thing that I would highly recommend doing is to try always having a bunch of maps for traversal, right? I call it the traversal maps, that are just random shitty rolls that you don't care about. And then separately, you're going to have a really well-rolled Waystones that I'm going to show you how to do in a moment. So these traversal maps, you use to get to these areas, and then how do you properly prepare them? So in order to properly prepare the area, you need to make sure that you first understand what you're going to be doing. So I'm going to be overlapping these 4 towers, right? You can see we have 4 towers very nicely positioned with a bunch of maps in the middle, and that's going to be 4 like quad overlap. That is massive, right? Like 4 towers is relatively rare to find, and that is something you definitely want to take advantage of. 3 towers like this would be also amazing. And then the added bonus is that we have a bunch of corrupted nexuses here, right? So we have like 4, and we have some of them overlapping with literally 3 towers as well, right? So if you look at this nexus and a bunch of maps here, the furthest tower still overlaps with a bunch of these maps. So they're going to be cleansed maps, because I'm going to rush to the nexus first. Then I'm going to do the cleansed maps with all of these modifiers, right? So we're going to get a huge amount of loot. And the way I approach these towers is to never walk through the middle, right? That's the rule. You never walk through the middle. So I was coming from here, and you can see I passed to this tower. Then I didn't go to this tower directly. I went back around and passed to it from the outside. And then I went back around and passed to this one from the outside. And then since I couldn't cross here because there is no connection, I went this way and pathed on the edge to this tower. And now we have all of these maps in the middle still untouched, right? So I'm gonna be able to do this. You could also, if you're running, for example, boss maps, boss tablets, which have a very limited amount of maps that they can affect, you wanna make sure that you're running the towers with T16s, because if you're doing T15s, then you're gonna see 99% more maps affected by the tablets, right? This means that whatever number you have on the tablet, so let me just grab a random tablet, right? So we have a tablet here, right? We have rarity of items dropped by the map boss, quantity of items. You can see up to 3 maps in the range contain bosses. That means that if I do the 99% tower, that's going to be affecting 5 maps. But if I do the 100% tower, which you can only get by doing a T16 map in it, then that's going to be 100% more maps affected by the tablet. So it's going to double the amount of maps that are affected by the first modifier, the implicit modifier that you see there, right? So instead of 3, it's going to be 6, right? So if I had a well-rolled one that has like 4 bosses, right? So let me find one that has 4 bosses like this, right? With a huge amount of rarity. So this one goes to 8. And since we're using 3, that's going to be 24. So 24 bosses in range, right? Some maps cannot actually have bosses, right? I hope they're going to change that in the future and every single map is going to be able to have a boss. But that is important because sometimes if you're doing that kind of a strategy, you want to clean maps on the outskirts, right? So this map, for example, right? Because this, okay, this is actually out of range. So something here, like this map, right? It's not going to be affected by any of the other towers. So it's never going to get a double overlap even, which means it's not worth really running other than like just like moving through it. So this map we can eliminate by quickly running it, and then it's not going to be affected by the tablets, and instead the tablets are going to be more likely to land in the middle and affect the stuff that we actually want to juice, right? So that's how you prepare an area. You find an area first by scouting, then you make sure that you know what you're going to be running. So you prepare the towers appropriately by either running T15 maps with 6 modifiers or T16 maps with 6 modifiers, right? And then you get the tablets and you juice the tablets and then you run the maps. So let's talk about the Waystones now. How do you actually roll the Waystones? This is really, really important. This will make a massive difference in your time efficiency, rolling the maps in batches. As you can see, I have a huge amount of maps here. Why are they not in the map tab, right? I have a map tab, right? I have like 168 maps here, 200 maps here. I have like a bunch of maps. Why are they not here, right? Why do I have maps in some random tab here? And why do I have like staves here and belts and what the hell is going on? So these are pre-rolled already. You can see here that these maps have quantity, rarity. They also have already enchant on them, right? So you can see like either I have rarity or I have an increased number of rare monsters. So that's the delirium thing that's adding it. And we have all of these maps are pre-prepared to have either rarity or a combo of like increased number of rare monsters and pack size, things like that, right? So really, really good prefix modifiers that will increase the drops. These maps are ready. If I have juiced stuff, right, I just take from these maps and I run that. I also have this stash tab prepared for this specific section on the atlas that I just showed you, right? These 4 maps that I showed, these are the tablets I'm going to be putting, and these are the maps. They are pre-prepared. So how do you prepare the maps? How do you go about that? I'm going to give you a very simple algorithm, right, for doing that. So you have a stash tab full of maps. What do? First thing you do, you type normal, okay? We're looking for normal maps. What do we do with normal maps? We alk them, right? So the first thing we do is we alk. So simply just literally alk every single one of these maps, right? Wait, I need to hold shift. Okay, not control. Okay, so we alk all of these maps. Now, what we do is, okay, they're gonna be now rare maps and magic maps. If we have magic maps, they might have 1 modifier or 2 modifiers. If they have 1 modifier, we wanna augment it. So we right-click augmentation, and it's very easy to see which ones can be clicked because we still have the normal text in here which grays it out, right? So we can very easily now augment all of these maps. Augments are literally free, okay? Augments are literally free. So we augment all of these maps, then we regal the maps, right? So we just regal all of the maps, right? We just hold shift and regal everything here. And if you wanted to, you could use omens, right? I'm not gonna bother with it now because it's gonna take more time and also it's not necessary. But if you want to, you can use omens, for example, like these, Sinstral Coronation, like the next Regal Orb you add will add only prefix modifiers, because prefix modifiers is the ones that we want. Suffixes we don't care about unless you're farming citadels, right? If you're farming citadels, then you do care about suffixes, because suffixes on the maps give them chance, Waystone drop chance, right? And that's what you care about if you're farming citadels. If you're doing regular juicing, like I'm showing you, then you don't care about suffixes, you only want prefixes. But okay, so we did Regal Orbs, right? Let me grab some more Regal Orbs. So we did make sure that all of the maps are rare, and all of the maps have as many modifiers as we can without even using any exalts, right? So we used basically free currency so far. So now what we can do is we can search for maps that have things that we want. The maps that I would recommend putting aside would be first maps that have experience. So let's just do Control F, experience. We only have one map with XP, right? 40% experience gained. I would always val this. The reason is, if you're valing maps, you're gonna lose some of them because they're gonna become T14. They're gonna change their tier and become one tier lower. We don't care, because an equal amount of maps on average is going to become T16. And that is something that you can either use yourself or sell for a big profit, right? So in this case, it just gained a random modifier or nothing even happened, right? And it's completely fine. And we can simply put this into our XP tab, right? So I have a tab where I have maps with XP. Look at that. We have a bunch of maps that have extra experience, and we have also T16 with experience, and we have also tablets that have 10% increased experience, which I am keeping on the side for when I want to level my next character. So that is something that I highly recommend doing, because it's gonna save you time, right? You always want to think about the big picture. If you're playing PoE and you're not just playing for like, I'm just gonna play it for a few days and check it out, right? If you actually want to play for like, a week or two or whatever, you want to look at the big picture and you want to do things that are gonna save you time. If I ever want to level next character, and I probably will, I'm not gonna have to buy these, right? I'm not gonna have to go to trade, message people and do all of that, because I already had them in my possession. Why would I need to sell them if I can keep them aside, be organized, and have everything that I need, right? So the same thing with these other maps. Next thing we're searching for is rarity. So if you just type rarity, you're gonna see rarity. Every item has rarity, right? It's a normal magical rare item, so that doesn't work. So we need to type rarity off, right? And then we can also do put it in quotation marks, and that is gonna look for modifiers that say rarity of items found in the area, right? So what we can do is we can grab all of these maps that have rarity off, and that is what I would run by default, right? So this is just like a generic thing we would want to run. The next thing we can do is we can put them in another tab. So let me just grab like a random tab. Okay, just to show you how I would roll them, because it's really nice to have them in a tab, because we can use the search function to notice specific things, right? So what I would do here also is I would look for the amount of tries of revives available, right? What I like doing is I like having an extra revive available, right? Because something bad can always happen. We don't want to lose a map, but we do want to maximize the amount of modifiers we have on it, so that we get extra quantity on it, or we get extra rare monsters or anything like that. So what I do is I type this ble, which is basically end of the word available, right? And then we type the amount. So let's say 3, right? So these are maps that have 3 extra revives available. So we get exalted orbs and we click twice on each of these, right? And then we type 2, and then we click once in each of these, right? So now we have a bunch of maps that still have 1 extra try available, unless we just literally found them on the ground with 6 mods. Then they have 0 revives available, and if you want, you can put them aside for your towers, which is what I do here, for example, right? So here normally where I have like good tablets for towers, I also would keep these maps that have extra that have 0 revives available, which are good for the towers, because that's 6 modifiers. And then we have these maps prepared, and we're going to need to put Deli on them. So what I would recommend is Distilled Paranoia. Distilled Paranoia gives you a 45% increase rare monsters, and since rare monsters is like majority of the loot that you're getting, that is really good. You can also use other ones. You can control and right click to put all of them in your inventory if you want. And then we can grab the maps, and then what you're gonna be doing is basically right click that, click the map, and then you just enchant them all, right? So you click the map, you click 3 of these, and then you just make these maps like that. So that's how I would pre-roll the maps. And then once you finish, right, you put them all into wherever you want to keep the maps that you're running, right? You can also then further go into the maps that you discarded, right, or that you didn't get, and then you can look for combinations of positive modifiers, right? So you could just exalt them all if you want, right? But if you don't want to spend the exalts, you don't even need to do that. You can be smart about it, and you can still find really good maps. So you can find maps that have rare monsters. You can find maps that have also pack size, right? And then we can see this is a number of rare monsters, a magic pack size, magic monsters, so increased pack size, right? So we do D, and this is a type of a map we would run as well, right? So we have increased number of rare monsters, pack size, and that would be a decent map to run as well. So you can select these maps. So let me put this one here. And then with the rest of the maps, what I do is I simply put them all in my inventory, because it's more convenient to do it from the inventory. And then what I do is I corrupt them all, right? So these maps we already would have discarded. We already would have thrown them away. And instead what we do, we simply corrupt them. And then some of them will become T16s, some of them will become T14s. So we can, again, drop them all back into the inventory. They'll all go back into the right place. And then we have some T16 maps that we can either run later or we can sell to someone. People buy these in bulk as well on TFT. You can sell them on trade website normally. You can just price your tabs, so you can sell them for profit. It's actually worth doing. The Val orbs that you're spending are gonna be very easily paid for, so it's worth doing it even at the beginning of the league. Then these T15s, they re-rolled, or they got more modifiers, right? So there is a lot of stuff that happened with them, but also we get the T14s. But now we can type again, rarity of, right? And then as you can see, some of them now got the rarity, right? Is there anything that got experience? Nothing got experience, but some of them got the rarity. So you can either put these aside and use these for your traversal, or use just these regular maps for traversal. And then when you farm maps to the point where you have like multiple tabs filled and you have like, okay, I have like 200 extra maps, what I do? Sell them in bulk. Even shitty corrupted maps that there's literally nothing in them, sell in bulk, because people want to just like go in and out of the map, like just quickly move through the maps and not worry about dropping them. There's different things that people use the maps for, and somebody will want it, and it will be worth like 1 exalt each, right? For like a random T15 map that is corrupted and there is, you know, nothing good on it. People will still buy those, and I regularly sell that, and I sell like, you know, 250 maps for a divine or whatever, but it's an extra divine that I have rather than not, right? So that's how I roll maps, that's how I prepare it. Now let's look at the strategy that I am gonna be running. So I'm gonna let you in on what I am doing right now and how I am maximizing my drops in order to get crazy loot. So the first thing we're going to start with is the area, right? So the area I showed you already, it has 4 towers. It has a bunch of maps in between, and it has some corrupted zones. The way I'm going to run it is I'm going to put the tablets in, then I'm going to do the corrupted nexuses, and then I'm going to do everything in the middle that has quadruple overlap. Then I'm going to do everything that has triple overlap. And then if I feel, you know, like, okay, I don't feel like exploring more, I can do even stuff that has like double overlap, but is cleansed, for example, right? Because that's going to have extra maybe potential for fracturing orbs and things like that. And then I'm going to move on from the area. I'm not going to do anything that has like single overlap or like double overlap, but it's kind of a shitty map or whatever. I'm not going to do any of that. I'm simply going to look for a better area. So now let's look at the mechanics that I'm going to be farming. The mechanics that I am prioritizing are going to be Breach and Expedition. The reason for that is that it's the fastest to do and it's the safest to do for my build. My build is very mobile. I'm playing with a Roa, I'm playing with a Lightning Spear, so I'm going to be going really fast and just shooting things from range. So I don't want to be doing rituals, and I don't want to be worrying about anything else, like, you know, stacking stuff on bosses or whatever. I'm simply going to be blasting as many monsters as I can. So we're running Irradiation, we're running Breach, and we're running Expedition tablets. So let's start with the Irradiation. With the Irradiation, you might notice the unique tablet that I have here, and that is Visions of Paradise. This makes it so that completing maps in range removes the Irradiation. That means that the maps that I have in the middle that have the quadruple overlap will have this, and I will be able to run them twice. So every single one of these tablets is gonna work on them twice, except for the irradiation. So I'm gonna get -1 to the level of the area, and I could either just run still T15s and they're gonna become just regular T15s, or I could run T16s if I wanted to keep the level. But I don't really care about the level that much. It's just about the amount of quantity and rarity and pack size and all of the scaling that we're gonna be doing. So if you're running like a very juicy area, this is worth it, because this is worth like 2 or 3 divines or something, right? Depending on the role, how many maps in Rage are irradiated or something. Not that it really matters for this, but this is something that is really worth. One of the fundamental principles of PoE and PoE2 is that the more you invest into the maps, the more you get out of them, and it is exponential. So it might seem ridiculous to spend 2 or 3 divines on a single tablet, but you have to consider that this tablet is going to last for like between 10 and 20 maps, right? Maybe like 15 maps or something like that. So 15 maps that are going to be affected by this are going to be run twice. I am easily going to make more money than this is worth from those maps, right? So that's why this is something that is important to understand. Investing more into the maps is something you really want to get into if you have, first of all, build that can handle it, and secondly, the currency to invest. But investing the currency is pretty much always worth it, unless you're doing something that doesn't synergize with each other, right? So if you're doing mechanics that, one mechanic that requires you to do the map as meticulously and slowly as possible, and one that is better if you do the map as fast and sloppy as possible, that's not gonna be always working together, right? But as long as you're using things that synergize together, it's gonna be great, right? So then we have a quantity on these. So I have like 7% quantity and chance to contain shrines. So shrines are gonna make me stronger and also add extra monsters around them. And then we have another 7% quant, 7% quant. So this is the highest percentage quantity that we can have. So that's for the irradiation maps, right? Shrines and quantity. Another good modifier on these is also rare monsters have a chance to have additional modifier, or maps have an additional modifier as well on them. Those are really good suffixes, right? Or anything else you'd like running, but this is what I'm doing. Then we have breach. So for breaches, I have quantity on these, right? On the suffixes as well. So we have 7 or 6%. It's really hard to even find like really good ones with 7%. And then we have things like extra rare monster, monster density, and chance to contain additional breach, or chance to contain 2 additional breaches. Those are the really good modifiers that you want on them, right? The good suffixes are rare monsters, density, and extra breaches. And that is combined with quantity here for these breach tablets. And then for expedition tablets, I have a rare one that I found that has quantity of items, pack size, and explosive radius, and the other ones have quantity and explosive radius, as well as increased number of runic monsters. So explosive radius scales exponentially as well, because as you're increasing the radius, the area of the circle, because we have like one giant circle, right? That area of that circle increases more and more. So especially if you are doing the big boom expedition, right? The passive that gives you like just one detonation, the radius of that is the biggest, right? It's bigger than the other radiuses, right? So it's gonna give you more and more area, right? So it's actually really nice to scale a few of those in order to get more monsters included into that. And my build doesn't really care about that many modifiers. Like if I hit, hit against monsters cannot be critical hits, that bricks it. But anything else than that is fair game. So I'm happy to do that. So those are the modifiers that I'm running. As you can see, I'm scaling out of quantity. And the reason for that is there is no really any other source of like viable way to get quantity, right? Another way to get quantity, like technically, right, kind of is just getting more monsters, right? So if I'm getting more density or more pack size, that is gonna scale all of that. But quantity is very nice to get from tablets, because then it's gonna be scale against the rarity that you have and the amount of monsters that we are adding to the maps. And now for the tablets, I am enchanting them with the number of rare monsters. And then we also have things like quantity and rarity with the extra rarity modifier. Most of these maps will have at least 2 good prefixes or really high rarity. So like this one, for example, you can see has really high rarity because it goes, increased rarity goes to 80. This is 92. I'm not sure why it's actually showing as 92. But then we have extra packs of bramble monsters and increased number of rare monsters, 30%, and then 45 from the enchant. So you can see these are some really juicy maps, right? Pack size, additional packs, quantity, rarity. We have rarity, pack size. We have things like rarity, number of magic monsters, magic pack size, number of rare monsters, quantity, rarity, number of monster packs, pack size. So there's like 3 really good modifiers, right? So I picked my best Waystones to run for this, right? Because you can see I have the pick, right? I can pick from so many different ones. So I simply searched for something that has multiple modifiers, and that's what I picked. And if you don't have the currency to run such a like heavy juicing strategy, right? To get all of these tablets that are pretty expensive, like multi-divine tablet, get these maps that are enchanted with all of that stuff, simply scale down one step, everything you can scale, right? So if you don't have currency for the Visions of Paradise, okay, just run it without, right? Until you make currency for it. If you don't have currency for like 7% quantity tablets, okay, get 5% quantity, get 4% quantity, right? Get rarity instead, right? There's lots of good stuff that you can get on the tablets that is not necessarily the quantity, right? You can get increased rare monsters in your maps. You can get things like what else? A rarity, increase rare monsters in your maps. You can get lower rolls of quantity. You can get pack size, right? So any of these modifiers, as good as you can, right? It doesn't really matter that much in the beginning if you don't have the currency. What matters is that you take advantage of everything that you can, right? So things that are virtually free are like maps and the atlas, right? So make sure to get all of the atlas points. They're free. Make sure to get good areas that have at least 3 towers overlapping. That's also free. It just costs you Waystones, which are free and easy to sustain. And just keep running Waystones until you get into a good area. Then even if you put a little bit worse tablets, but you have 3 towers overlapping, you're gonna get better loot, more currency, and you can snowball that way, right? If you don't have currency to enchant with the distilled paranoia, use like distilled guilt or whatever gives the rarity instead, right? So rarity is completely fine, but like definitely use these if your build can handle a little bit of delirium on the map, because it will increase your drops significantly. And now you can like the video, subscribe to the channel, and go juice some maps to get more loot. Good luck.